Now playing in a world where we're not sure if we want to go back to the theaters. You know, I know I usually say that when you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. Technically, that's not true today because I'm actually not here right now. I'm on vacation, but just because I'm on vacation doesn't mean we're not leaving stuff in the digital space to keep our loyal listeners happy. And what we're doing right now is we're doing a little thing I like to call Critic's Corner, where we're branching out with a bunch of contemporaries and talking about movies that, they're on streaming services or what have you that may have fallen underneath the radar. Stuff that you're going to miss, stuff that's not obvious that you really should see. And on this episode, we are talking with not only a In the Seats contributor, but a man, well, he's a man of faith and a man I have faith in. It's Mr. Steve Norton. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Now, I mean, obviously, people can't find you at In the Seas, but do us a kindness and tell us what you have going on over at ScreenFish.net because you're doing great work.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, no, we're excited about what's going on with ScreenFish. We have daily reviews on current films and TV series that are out there. We've got our stuff up by now on Black Widow, and if it hasn't happened yet, like Jungle Cruise, all these big ones. But we also love the independent films as well. You can find us wherever podcasts are available, and actually you can check out our YouTube channel, Screenfish Online, and we've started to get some more video content on there in the last recent weeks, where we started a new podcast series called Movies You Missed, and two of us that are over 40 are speaking with three who are under 25,
Oh
and,
no!
and
Oh
holding our films up against one another.
no!
So that's been fun, and that's been running this summer. So that's been great.
Well, fantastic, man. But I mean, let's just dive into the movie. What we picked was it's a film on Amazon Prime back from 2013. It's called Lore, from director Cate Shortland, who actually did direct Black Widow, which is probably in theaters or on premium VOD as we speak on your Disney Plus channel. But it's the story of some children after being abandoned by their Nazi parents at the end of World War II. These five siblings embark on a harrowing journey across their war torn country. Led by the eldest child, the 14-year-old Lore, the children are forced to confront their parents' actions and the reality of the new world in which they find themselves. It's like I remember seeing this during the festival run, and it really hit me as a sort of interesting take on and powerful film just on the sort of the issues that totally come around, not just war, but especially World War II and sort of the end of the war, which sort of the fallout of that never really gets sort of discussed from the German side. And I'm kind of curious, like, talk to me a little bit just about your sort of initial impressions on the film.
I'm like a man. Like you said, this is a totally unique voice and spin on material that we've seen before. And I say, I'm sorry, we haven't seen this before, but the material we've seen before, it's a unique spin on. And you covered that. And man, I'm still processing it. It is wild to see it from the perspective of those who believed so much in what they were doing. And they're focusing on kids here. There's an innocence level
Yeah.
that is unbelievable. These are not soldiers who, are in their mid 20s or 30s and knew life before Hitler. These are kids that grew up in this environment. It's Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent film. It's such a wild voice.
No, I mean, for sure. It's one of those things that just, especially in watching it, I was so reminded of just sort of the cold, like, again, the cold realities that they had to face. Like, the oldest Laura was obviously 14, but the rest of them didn't know. The rest of them were clueless. Like, she had a sort of an idea. She wasn't necessarily happy about it, but I mean, the other kids were lost in this complete chaos of what the end of the war is. And I mean, I think this film really does capture that sort of
Yeah.
really quite well.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny, like you say that she sort of knew. I don't know what she knew. Like when we see at the beginning of the film,
Even she's not sure what she knew.
yeah, like well, this is what I mean. It is such a film about losing your innocence in Is innocence even the word? I would suggest that it is in this case because we obviously, when we look back on World War II, we understand the atrocities that took place. But these young people, as they're coming up, like this is just the world they know. They're just living out the lies they've been fed. And here, even the fact that Laura is protecting her siblings, Laura's keeping them from understanding the fact that mom and dad are gone. They are
Yeah.
not coming back. Um, but does she even understand that? Like I mean, there's one point where she unloads on Thomas uh, tons of anti-Semitic or several anti-Semitic comments because of their relationship. And I, in that particular moment, to me, I was really struck by that because there's both. A world that she's becoming aware of and also a world that she's clinging to at the same time converging in this space.
No, and I mean, something else that really kind of fascinated me is because, I mean, you see a story like this, you're going to go, "Oh, it's a German director." It's like, no, Cate
Yeah.
Shortland is far from a German director. She's an Australian director. This
Mhm.
was her second feature, and it's one of those things that when we see a story like this, it speaks to sort of not just the universality of war, but just sort of the universality of the horrors that can be sort of put upon anybody, really. It's amazing to see this kind of thing done, but not necessarily done from, the eye that you'd expect.
Yeah, that's exactly. Now, ironically, had it been done from a German director, I think it probably would it may have lost some of its edge because people may have viewed it more negatively in some ways because it may have felt like this was some sort of way to rebuild. I'm just speaking here hypothetically, but
No,
I mean,
absolutely.
having someone outside really changes it.
No, and also, like, just in watching it, it's again looking back on it sort of with the, reflective or retrospective eyes, as it were. Seeing a film from somebody who is basically 1 degree away from making a Marvel movie is kind of fascinating to see.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because that was one of the things that I felt watching it because obviously the first question in your mind is why her? Why did she get to direct Black Widow? Why was she picked? And it is interesting that in terms of both films, now they're wildly different films.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try and say that they're similar in nature, but
You see the why.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, a- and I will say, I think that both films have to do with. I will say that both Yeah. I will say that both films have to do with psychological control on some level. Where in Black Widow, I'm not going to give away any spoilers for somebody that hasn't seen the film, of course, but with Black Widow, you've got her processing her relationship that's been fed to her from the Red Room and all the people that are associated with that. And this film to me is so much the story of one young woman who's trying to discover what the world is really like more than what she was told. Um, because there is absolutely along this, or sorry, within this film, Laura's journey. Sorry, I'm sorry. You're editing, so I
Yeah, yeah,
apologize.
yeah. Oh,
Got
yeah.
a dog here that's flipping out here. Hey, stop, stop that.
I'll fix it in post.
Thank you. Fix it in post. Um, within this film, you have a young woman who is really this is a coming of age, but a different type of coming of age.
Yeah, very much so.
That's not the type. This is not the type of coming of age drama that we expect normally, by
No,
any stretch.
this is the world is horrible and you were a part of horrible things. Surprise. Yeah, that's yeah. But I mean, especially in watching the film again, it makes me so glad that sort of Kevin Feige and everyone in sort of behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like whenever they've taken on new directors, they've taken on genuine storytellers, not people who are sort of trained at doing tent poles. They've taken on people who are always more character driven as opposed to sort of spectacle driven. as much as these films have fantastic spectacle. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, that, and I respect that. That's I think that's one of the reason it works, the system that they've got going. A lot of like, when they bring someone in, they're bringing someone in that has a specific voice and is willing to ask some tough questions. Now, then they get marvelized along the way. But in a film like this, we have such a unique vision of this young woman grappling with reality that I think it's absolutely stunning, and it actually works. It totally works in terms of where they go with Black Widow for sure.
No, and I mean, much like Black Widow, Lore is really this fantastic example of female driven cinema, like female made films, and just like there are so many of them out there that don't necessarily get the love or recognition that they deserve, and this is certainly one of them.
Yeah, I was wondering whether you think, do you think she's a hero? I haven't been able to figure. I've been wrestling with that or not. Is who the hero of the piece is?
I don't know. I think she's the survivor. I don't know. I don't necessarily think she's the hero. I don't think this is a story. I think the heroic, if there's any heroic aspect about a movie about Laurie, it's about the survival.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. Because by the end of the film, there's a strength within her.
No, for sure.
Um, but it's a newfound strength. Like, this is the thing. Like, I'm still processing this out. But her, are we spoil? Can we be spoilery
Go
in this?
for it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when she breaks the deer at the finale,
Yeah.
like, that is a bold image.
Yeah,
That
it
is
is.
a bold image, because this is the remnants of her mother, of everything she knew, and she's now, she has spent the entire film trying to get her family, her brothers and sisters, to her life that she once knew. And when
Yeah.
she's gotten there, she is so different that she's no longer safe.
No, it's true. It's such a pivot point. It's really such a reminder of how the journey changed her. I mean, I don't know if it's for better or for worse, but it definitely changed her. It's sort of not being outside of that sort of sheltered bubble that, I mean, I don't want to say sheltered because it's the bad word, but she obviously didn't, like at the start of the film, she had a sense, but she never truly had a sense until she got out into the middle of the world and was having to deal with all the obstacles that came in her path. It's one of those things where, it's, trial by fire, it's learned by attrition, it's that kind of journey that we see her going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, 100%. And she doesn't fit in the world anymore by the end of the film. That where she lands. I love that you use the term survivor, because her eyes have been opened
Yeah.
in a, I mean, it's a powerful film. And even the fact of what's happening with Thomas, and that he's there, but he's not who he says he is.
Right.
That was the one true shock that I had throughout the film. I did not see that coming. When the kid said, "Oh, I have his wallet," I'm like, "Well, I saw that coming." And they're looking through it, and he goes, "Oh, it's not really him." I'm like, "Excuse me." Uh, um, it's a film like that. I didn't expect to have a quote unquote twist, but it was beautifully done, and again taps into that sort of, well, again, a different take on it, but that idea of what it takes to survive.
No, for sure. And I mean, I think it just serves as such a shining example of the real quality of foreign cinema that's out there. Because I mean, you and I have been in this business long enough and talked to enough people and be like, "Oh, I've watched everything on Netflix. There's nothing on Prime anymore." It's like, You're wrong. You're lying. You're not trying hard enough." There's movies like this that get shoved sort of deep in a dark little corner that really deserve an audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, when people say that, what they say is the IP that I'm familiar with are the ones that I can no longer watch. That's what it is.
The six
I have.
episodes I've watched are gone. Oh no. There's 6,000 more.
Friends moved over to Crave. I don't know what I'm going to watch now on Netflix. But in all truth, though, Dave, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, this is a film, but it's not the type of film I would think that most people would consider casually, and maybe they shouldn't. Maybe this is a film that we have to, like, like this podcast is saying, make awareness for it,
Yeah.
because it's something they should intentionally see. You don't say, "Well, I've watched Always Be My Maybe one too many times. Hey, what's this lore?" Uh,
It's not a straight line. It's not a straight line. Absolutely not.
but no, it's beautifully made. I noticed one thing I will say, it is shockingly quiet.
Yeah.
Shockingly quiet. Like, I mean, I'm watching it, and that I did laugh at in some ways, because Black Widow is not quiet.
No. No, it's
It is
not.
a noisy gong and clanging cymbal, and this one, I mean, even the scenes with Laura and Thomas,
Yeah.
they're just silent.
The quiet adds to the power of the film, though. I'm convinced
Okay.
of that.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is not a film that I think that if they had too much chatter in it, it would take away from the fact that so much of it is such an emotional, spiritual journey along the way.
For sure, man. Well, you know what, man? Lore is on Amazon Prime now. You and I both can't say enough positive things about it. It is from director. Where did my notes go? Cate
Is that a
Shortland. Yep. And but go check it out. It's one of those things that, if you're flicking around and you don't know what to watch, go watch it, because again, it's one of those movies that Steve and I basically spend our lives trying to champion. And the problem is they come at us pretty fast and furious. So sometimes you gotta slow down, and pun not intended, but slow down and just sort of take a look at some of the stuff that has happened in recent years and be able to appreciate it, which is what these streaming services are really allowing us to do so very well. And just thanks for coming on today, Steve, and spend a few minutes to dig up a little a gem from a few years ago, and again scream the passion and importance of cinema that you and I do on a daily basis.
I appreciate that, Dave. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course. Ciao, brother.
Ciao.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.